Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I wanted to answer the question, why did God harden Pharaoh's heart in Exodus chapter 7? So let's look at the verses here. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 21, it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, When thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all the wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thy hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go." Let's look at some of the verses here in Exodus chapter 7. Exodus chapter 7, verse 13 says, "And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said." And then verse 14 says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go." So a lot of people wonder, why did God harden Pharaoh's heart? You know, if people have free will, why would God forcefully harden Pharaoh's heart? And so this can actually be answered when we look at the entire book and we go to the beginning and see that Pharaoh actually sinned against God initially. He hardened his own heart first. And so if we go to Exodus chapter 2, verse 15, it says, "Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But when Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well," right? So we can see here he was sinning against God. He was sinning against God's servant Moses here in the beginning, right? So he was sinning initially. He was hardening his own heart initially. And so God was just using that and continuing it, right? So he was doing that out of his own free will, and just God was just using that for his own purpose because he did that himself, right? And so that's why God hardened his heart in Exodus chapter 7. And we can actually confirm this in Exodus chapter 8. Look at Exodus chapter 8, verse 32. It says, "And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go." So see here it says Pharaoh hardened his heart. And so we can see that actually just confirms, how he hardened his heart, and how in the beginning here, like even in Exodus chapter 2, he was coming against God, coming against his servant, and sinning initially. And so God was just using that for his purpose and hardening his heart to fulfill his purpose. And so Romans chapter 1, verse 28 is very similar to this. This is about giving people over to a reprobate mind. And I think that this is kind of like the same thing, basically. So in verse 28, it says, "And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient." And so as you can see here, it's not that God forcefully does this to people, right? Against their own free will. People initially reject God first, and then God just uses that and then gives them over to a reprobate mind, right? So see, as it says in verse 28, "And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge," so they initially rejected God, and when they did that, God just said, "Okay, that's your choice, right? From your own free will, that's your choice." He just uses that, and then he gives people over to a reprobate mind, and he hardens people's hearts, right? So that's what that's about. And it doesn't mean that people can't repent, right? That's not what it means. So anyone with air coming into their lungs can repent at any time. They can get saved at any time, right? So anyone can do that at any point, right? As long as they're alive. So it's not the point that they're irredeemable, or anything like that. It just shows that God, uses these situations that people do their own out of their own free will, their own sinful actions, and continues it, for his own purpose and things like that. So that's all that is. So it doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to repent. So that's why God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So I hope that makes sense. All right. God bless.